Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ready, Set, Action. This is your weekly guide to navigating the world of business growth. I'm Kristina Witmer, a marketing veteran, and I'm joined by Debra Horowitz, a talent leader. Each week, we speak with industry leaders to bring you actionable tips and insights specifically designed for small business owners and growth leaders. Welcome to our guest this week, Kim Follis, president at Delta Dallas. She is an expert at impacting businesses and lives through the recruiting and staffing process. So welcome.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Do you want to tell us a little bit about you? And then we've got a few questions for you today.
Absolutely. Well, I am very blessed and fortunate. I have been with Delta Dallas. I just celebrated my 36th anniversary. And
Nice.
Delta Dallas is a boutique recruiting and staffing firm here in the Dallas Metroplex. And I'm blessed to say, changing lives literally in the business community through staffing and recruitment. We do direct hire and temporary in the areas of administrative, HR, client services, accounting. Really, operational excellence is where we're able to impact companies. And I'm blessed to have a team that I'm just very fortunate to surround myself with some amazing people who take pride in their work that they do and do it with a servant heart.
That is so cool. Love everything about your culture and, the fact that you have been in business, and congratulations on, that's epic that you've been in business that long. And hey, let's go for another 30 some years, right? I'm wondering, because you are just, so entrenched in the Dallas market. Let's start there, right? Because that's where you are. But I'm always curious about supply and demand for talent in the local market. So what are some of the key trends that you're seeing right now that SMBs should be aware of? And then the second part of that is, how can they kind of adapt their recruitment strategies accordingly? So what I'm thinking about is, like, in Dallas, there are, industries that have like specific roles that they're always recruiting for. So what are you seeing? Too much, too little, in terms of talent to fill those roles?
Sure. Well, that is a great question. And Dallas is a good market. It's very economically diverse. There's so many different industries. I am thrilled that people and companies still want to come here. The quality of life, the market with talent is a little bit different, because to your point, there are some companies that have very specific roles that have to be filled. And small and medium-sized companies are really having, in my mind, what we've experienced, having sort of both what I call the right brain and left brain. On one hand, they have to be very conservative. They know what they're looking at. They have priorities and missions that they're trying to accomplish. On the other hand, they're having to do it in a unique way. They have to be more innovative. They have to be more, focused on who they are and what makes them unique and different. And what we've experienced sometimes with small to medium-sized companies is they're entrepreneurs. So they are creative thinkers, they're doers, they're go-getters, and Dallas is the place for that to happen. I think there's a little bit of a misnomer that there's tons of people out there. And on one hand, there are a lot of people out there, but they may not be exactly what they're looking for. And so when we're consulting with some of our clients, we'll prioritize what is really important and what kind of skill set, what are the hard skills that have to be had, and what are the soft skills that need to be had, and how are you going to be able to prioritize those skill sets so that you're finding the talent that is going to help you build your company, and that the talent is going to really be able to put their thumbprint and impact on the organization in a positive manner.
That makes sense to me. Um,
Yeah. I think you're right. Sometimes, Kim, the impression is there's a lot out there to choose from. And so I think your expertise comes into play to kind of help that hiring manager, whether it's the owner of the small business or the, department head of a medium-sized business, really focus in on what's going to make that team successful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'm wondering, as far as like the significant like acquisition or I guess retention challenges that you're seeing out there, what do you think those top challenges are, and any practical solutions you've seen?
Sure.
Worked with?
Relationship building,
Mm.
having transparent conversations, being willing to be vulnerable to talk about what is important to each other. In the past, there have been times people say, oh, is it a candidate market or is it a client market? And in 2025, it's both. Both parties are really needing to come together. And as I mentioned before, what is important to a company? What are the priorities? Who do you want to be known as? What kind of employees are you wanting to come to your organization? Technology and the human touch. I don't know how it's impacted both of you ladies, but getting people on the phone, having a conversation has got to be something that is planned and strategically put in place. Old days, we had a 30, 60, 90, one-on-one annual review, so on and so forth. But small to medium businesses, they're doing it on the fly. You have to do it then, address the points, because things are changing so fast that being agile and flexible to address things is really important. So the dynamic of the workplace, is it how does an organization want to set that up? Do they want to be in the office? We're finding that a lot of people are coming back to the office, and that's a challenge for some of the candidates who honestly have been at home since 2020. So
Right.
they're having to pivot and learn honestly new skills, how to interact with their coworkers and collaborate. And that's a little bit of a paradigm shift. So I would probably say my top 5 would be the interaction of human and technology. How does that work? The balancing of what the evolving workforce looks like, what those expectations are. Communication, making that definitely a priority. Finding the right people for the right positions and not being so black and white about it, but looking at the long-term potential and impact that someone can have in an organization. And then finally, the retention challenges of, okay, great, we have found these individuals. What are we going to do to keep them? Are we going to train them? Are we going to mentor them? Are we going to continue to have those evolution type growth? What does growth mean? Conversations so that you're not, well, that you're ahead of the game versus always firefighting when things don't go well.
Yeah. I have a sort of a follow-up on that. You mentioned, and I'm glad you did, the sort of this human connection, the communication, all these things. And as I think about it, it used to be something where I would say you look at the generations and how you communicate with them. But I feel like that's a little bit of an easy way out and not as accurate, because I mean, you have people that entered the workforce and have never worked in an office, right?
Right.
I mean, that's absolutely got to be the case. So how do you think businesses are sort of adapting how they communicate fast enough? Because I'm not sure I'm seeing that.
I think it's a daily struggle.
Mm.
And I think somebody has to be really mindful in making it a priority. We have the pleasure of course, interfacing with a lot of talent, and we ask them, what is your reason for leaving? Well, I don't feel that I have my expectations outlined. I don't know what's expected of me. I literally don't talk to my supervisor. And so I think that it's a little ironic because some of these individuals, to your point, Kristina, is that they're in the marketplace and they're hungry for that, but then they're also have never had to experience. So they need that mentorship, that guidance, that training to exposure to know really how to help that organization. But it's not one-sided. It is totally, it's everybody's responsibility. It's not just one person's.
Yeah, that's so true. And the Gen Zs, we've been told that they don't look at a manager as a person in authority. They look at him as an equal, right? Mm-hmm. And so just understanding all of those nuances and what does that mean? So how do they need to be treated, right, in order to make that relationship work and things of that nature. We've had previous conversations about this on Ready, Set, Action. So I'm curious because there's been such a shift and lots of buzz around soft skills, right? And we know that it's really that combination of the technical skills to perform the job as well as, essential soft skills and those personal attributes that go into defining what the right fit is. So how do leaders really assess those qualities during that hiring process so that they understand those, things that are not so tangible, those soft skills, those personal attributes?
Absolutely. And Deb, I'm going to start a little bit backwards in that before you ask the questions, because I think everybody should be a master question asker. Ask the questions. But you have to identify really what is important to you and what are those soft skills. I sort of have, I'm going to do this the best that I can from memory, but I sort of have my top 10 of what that looks like or what we hear. Part of it is flexibility and adaptability, change. Are they active listeners? Are they dependable and reliable? Grit. Do they have resilience? That has been a big one where I don't know about y'all, but life is not perfect. And you are going to have challenges, which leads into being a problem solver. So how do you address that? Attitude, come with a positive attitude, can do, we can make it happen. Being someone who has a growth mentality as to how can I contribute and make a difference with in an organization. Communication skills, verbal, written. Technology with AI has really helped, but you have to know what those prompts are going to look like so that you know what questions to ask. So then you're able to communicate in a positive way. Most people think of soft skills like emotional intelligence, empathy, teamwork, relationships. So that is a piece of it. And so those, I don't know how many those are, but it's definitely a list. But to your point, Deb, asking questions. And I was on a call the other day, and literally the individual said, can you tell me what situational interviewing means? And so we sort of role played of, tell me of a time, share. You as a candidate have to be able to be a storyteller. With that being said, as a potential employer, you have to have specific questions that are pointed to the soft skills that you're looking for. Tell me about a time. Tell me about a time where you thought you were going to knock something out of the park and it fell flat on its face. How did you approach it? What did you learn from it? What are you going to do differently? When it comes to that sort of goes to the grit aspect. When you talk about growth, I think I mentioned it earlier. What does growth mean? We interview candidates all the time and they're like, I want to grow. And it's like, okay, well, what does that mean? Do you want a ladder? Do you need to have a certain time frame that this happens and this happens and this happens and that it's all written out? Or what our company has experienced when you're with a small to medium sized company, growth can be amazing. I mentioned earlier that I just celebrated my anniversary. When I started, I had no idea what and how I would grow both personally and professionally in a small entrepreneurial environment. How many hats, how many people, how many opportunities. And I'm blessed that the founder of our company, Linda Crawford's like, go do it, figure it out, go, just make it happen. And I'm like, okay. And so those are questions that need to be asked. Sometimes a question that I recommend people asking is, what kind of environment do you need to set yourself up for success? Because it could be, I need a library because I'm doing this. Well, if it's chaotic, then that means it's not going to be a good fit factor for them. One challenge that I do see companies do is they tell or share with the individual what the job responsibilities are. They tell versus listening and example, oh, well, this is what the job responsibilities are, blah, 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 blah. What do you think? And they're like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. That's great. Versus, what are you good at? Where do you think you can contribute? What are your strengths? Tell me what your coworkers would say about you. How would your friends describe you? What are you going to expect from us to set you up for success? Because as a employer, we want our employees to be successful. We want that match because it's costly. It's very, very costly. I will say that there are some organizations that, and I have mixed emotions about this, just for the record, about different assessments. If it's the DISC or the Myers-Briggs or an Enneagram. And I feel that they're very, very valuable. I feel that it's important to use it to set people up for success versus not. Are you following me on that?
Like to identify where you can most like help them or motivate them and things like that. Makes sense to me.
Absolutely. But being that master question asker, I think is really a critical aspect. But before knowing that, what questions to ask, you have to know what you're trying to evaluate.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. That was really helpful. I have like all these questions popping up, but I'm going to try to stay on track here. So I want to talk specifically about, and you've touched on some of these, so we can just kind of go through the list, but strategic interview questions to really reveal a potential for growth, which you touched on, and then also like adaptability and cultural fit. Like any things that you've seen that are...
Sure. I am going to reiterate, what is your definition of growth? Mm-hmm. I think that that's important. And I also think it is important to ask somebody, what are some concrete things that you are doing to perpetuate that growth? What contribution do you want to bring to the table? Because I think it's important that individuals understand, again, it's not a one-way street. I think that, yes, employers have obligations to train, to educate, to onboard properly. With that being said, I think it's important that the individual is contributing themselves to make something happen. So asking the question, what is your definition? What are you doing? Is there something that you've recently done that has contributed to either your personal or professional growth? Is it education? Is it reading a book? Is it getting involved in some kind of networking organization. What have you done to help in that growth strategy? Adaptability, you had mentioned. Can you share a story or an example where you faced a significant change at work and how that impacted you? Usually you're going to have one candidate start sweating bullets because they're not comfortable with that kind of change. It's uncomfortable for them. And that's okay as long as the employer knows that on the front side, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Also, can you tell us a situation where you were faced with uncertainty or incomplete information? A lot of times we've had executive assistants say that they didn't feel that they had enough information to do your job. And so it was like, okay, well, tell me more about that. Because I'm going to tell a quick story. I remember the first time that I was meeting with a CEO when he was looking for an executive assistant. And he said, we were talking about technology. And he said, they need to have this and 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 this. And I said, okay, time out. What are they doing that they have to have all of this technology? And I was so thankful. And it was such a learning lesson for me. He said, actually, I just don't want them asking me about it. So they have to be resourceful. They have to be able to do that. And I think that that's important when individuals, how resourceful are you? You know, tell me about a situation where you have little information. So that would be a good question as well. Culture fit. We talked a little bit about the work environment. What are your values? What is what do you pride yourself on? How do you handle conflict? And one question that I've recently been asking is, I understand that cultural fit is important. How do you, candidate, contribute personally to the culture of the environment? Because I think at times individuals are like, oh, it's they did this or they did this or they did. And it's like, wait a minute, you're a part of that as well. So what can you do to enhance the culture? So I think that's important. And then another question, I could go on and on, but another question is, how do you collaborate with your team? You've been working at home. You're now going to be here. Why do you think that that's going to work? Or how do you think that's going to work? So that you can see if their train of thought is in alignment with what you as an employer believe in. Yeah.
You said something about the question of like, what are you willing to contribute, or how are you contributing? I'm on my board of my HOA, and I was thinking that that's all I could see is like, what are you willing to do?
Yeah, what are you willing to do?
Let's complain. No.
Yeah. Well, and please know that when you're in an interview, guess what the one question is? The one question. And it's going to come across very direct, but it is the one question. Why should we hire you? Mm-hmm. What makes you different? What do you bring to the table? With that being said, I'm going to go back a little bit when you were talking about the challenges that companies are having. Is candidates expect it? They want to know what's in it for them. So it goes back to that two-way street. It is definitely something that's important to both parties. It's not one over the other. They have to be in alignment together.
That's an excellent point. You know, Kim, in all your years of working with business leaders and business owners, I'm sure that you've got an overview of like what's changed, what's been working well from a recruitment perspective. And excuse me, I know when you're called in, there's probably certain roles that you're looking to help them fill, right? But they're probably sharing with you some of the methods that they're using to attract top talent. And so what are some of those methods that you have learned, like in the last couple of years, that really seem to be working well for companies to be doing on their own? And then what are the advantages for them to partner with a specialized recruitment agency like yours?
Absolutely. So I think we've all heard the statement that, things are cyclical. And while I would love to say in the last 3 years, there's these amazing things that have happened, but 4 years, people have posted. 4 years, people count on referrals. 4 years, people have networked or been in association. I think what I've seen most recently, though, in the last 5 years, is that it's not one or the other. It's a little bit of all of it. And I think it's a misnomer for people to think, oh, well, if I do this, then it's going to be the golden ticket to get exactly what I want. And that's not true. And so, yes, I will say that technology has helped. I also know that the people part of it is critical. And had a prospective client call this week, and we went and met with them, because not only do we meet with the candidates, we meet with the companies, because we really want to capitalize on that relationship. And the business development individual said, well, what prompted you to engage with us to come and meet with you? No joke. You answered the phone. You answered the phone. So, and that's in my mind, that's a challenge that just breaks my heart, to think that people are looking for services or resources and they're not getting feedback. Or even when we call in companies, it's like, press the name, spell the name, here's your voicemail, and you just go down this rabbit hole. And so, to directly answer your question, I don't think there's any silver ticket or golden ticket, silver bullet that says, if you do this, this is what you're. It is a little bit of everything, and it's a lot of collaboration. I will say that a lot of the clients that come and partner with us, and I strategically use the word partner because it is a partnership, and that is a philosophy, is we can save them time and money. We had a client the other day that said, yeah, we posted and we literally had over 350 candidates apply in the first 2 hours. We had to take the ad down. And oh, by the way, they just got so overwhelmed that none of them were qualified.
Yeah.
And so therefore the time aspect of things is where we've really been able to make an aspect, because our philosophy is top 3 candidates, which we've met, we've vetted, we've confirmed that they're in alignment. And guess what? We're not perfect, because new information shows up after the 3 are interviewed. Also, from a staffing firm aspect, there's some risk mitigation, because most staffing firms have a guarantee. And I know we have a quality control process that I mentioned earlier, the 30, 60, 90 day thing. We're checking in because we want to make sure that onboarding goes well. And then also because we don't take all orders, because we are specialized in what we do. And that's where we can help.
Awesome. That's helpful. I mean, I definitely think we may have a part 2 to this down the road, maybe later in the year. Deb, did you have anything else quickly? Or are you good?
No, I think, it's just always about understanding what's working and relying on an expert to kind of guide you, especially if you're experiencing scaling up an organization or something like that, and you've never had that experience before, if you can't hire somebody full-time to do that for you internally, using a resource like Delta would definitely be a right play, a good place to start, right? To get that expertise and kind of help you build that plan.
Awesome.
Sure.
Well, great, Kim. I mean, we're really grateful for your time, and you've given us a lot of information to chew on. So we really do appreciate it. I'm going to wrap us up here and just share comments in the post if you guys want to ask questions. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We hope you found today's episode helpful. Thanks again to Kim for joining us. And don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube, or podcast with Spotify and Apple. You won't miss an update of Ready, Set, Action.